Welcome to Good Talk English Podcast.
I mean, be honest. How many times have you told yourself, uh, you know, I'm definitely going to start that tomorrow,
Oh yeah, tomorrow's the day.
right? And then tomorrow comes and you push it to the next day. It's a universal struggle. We just constantly avoid doing the hard things. But welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, we are looking at something that might completely change how you approach your goals.
It really is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah, it is. We're pulling from a really fantastic YouTube video by the Mindset Mentor podcast. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this six-step method they outline. It's designed to completely rewire how we view self-control.
Because usually we just rely on guilt, right?
Exactly. Guilt and shame. But we're going to learn how to make discipline and taking action genuinely enjoyable, which, I mean, sounds crazy, but it works.
It sounds impossible to a lot of people because we normally think of discipline as fighting resistance. Like you have to battle your own laziness every single day.
Yeah, white-knuckling it.
Right. But this deep dive is really about removing that resistance entirely. You don't have to fight a wall if you just take the wall down.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even get into those 6 steps, we really need to unlearn the whole traditional toxic approach to self-discipline.
The whole grind mentality.
Yes, the myth of the white-knuckle grind. You know, this idea that you can just bully or shame yourself into long-term consistency.
Which you absolutely cannot do. I mean, maybe for a few days.
Sure, yeah, guilt works for like a week,
Yeah.
but then what happens?
You crash. It inevitably leads to burnout. The creator of the source video actually shares this crazy example from his own life. In his early 20s, he worked 110 hours a week for 3 years straight.
Wait, 110 hours? Every week?
Every single week.
For 3 years. That is insane. I mean, if you do the math on that, you barely have time to sleep, let alone, eat or see friends.
Exactly. And he forced it. But it forced him into total burnout. And the reason for that is just basic biology. If you look at the brain's fundamental operating system, it really only does 2 things.
Right. It avoids pain, and it moves toward pleasure or reward.
That's it. That's the baseline. So when we say to ourselves, oh, I really need more discipline, what we're actually saying is, I need to learn how to make this task feel good enough that I genuinely want to do it.
That is such a good way to put it. It's like we've been trying to drive a car with the parking brake on by just slamming the gas pedal harder instead of simply figuring out how to release the brake.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
But I want to ask you about the mechanics of that. Like, how exactly do those negative emotions, the guilt and the shame, how do they create that unconscious resistance?
Well, this raises an important question about how we frame our tasks. Think about it. When you tell yourself you have to go to the gym because you're out of shape, or you have to work late because you were lazy early
You're
on.
basically punishing yourself.
Exactly. You're framing it as a punishment.
Right.
And what does the brain do with punishment? It registers it as pain.
And the brain avoids pain.
Always. So unconsciously, your brain starts building huge psychological walls to keep you away from that task, to protect you.
Oh, wow. So the resistance isn't me being lazy. It's my brain trying to protect me from something I labeled as painful.
Precisely. You're literally programming yourself to fail when you use guilt.
Okay, so we know we have to release that parking brake. We can't use shame. So how do we actually get the car moving? Which brings us to the first part of the method. Steps 1 and 4, right?
Yes. Both of these steps deal directly with the friction of starting, because starting is always the hardest part.
Always. So step 1 is what the source calls the breadcrumb method.
Right. And the core idea here is that most people build their habits like they're climbing a cliff. It's just this massive vertical wall.
Like, I'm going to run 10 miles today, having not run in a year.
Exactly. The brain sees that cliff and completely shuts down. But the brain actually prefers trails. Small, clear, super low effort paths.
So you literally leave breadcrumbs for yourself.
Yes. The video gives some really great practical examples of this, like if you want to work out in the morning, lay your clothes and your shoes out the night before.
Right, so they're right there when you wake up.
Or if you want to write, open your laptop the night before. And just give yourself permission to write one terribly messy page, nothing more.
I love the food prep one too, like prepping just one piece of washed cut fruit in the fridge so when you get hungry, it's easier to grab that than to open a bag of chips.
Yeah, you're just making the good choice the easiest choice. The creator uses this analogy from the movie E.T. that I really like.
Oh, yeah, the Reese's Pieces.
Right. The kid doesn't fight the alien to get him in the house. He just lays out a trail of Reese's Pieces one by one.
Just guiding E.T. one step at a time. I mean, we're basically doing that to our own brains.
Exactly. And that flows perfectly into step 4, which is shrink the start.
Making it easier to start than to avoid.
Yeah.
Like shrinking the whole mountain down.
Yeah. Instead of an hour workout, commit to just 10 minutes at the gym. Just getting through the doors.
Or committing to washing just one single dish instead of cleaning the whole kitchen.
Right. And the source shares this great story about a hike in Sedona. He was dreading this 4-mile hike in the sweltering heat. Just didn't want to do it.
I mean, I wouldn't either.
Right. But instead of focusing on the 4 miles, he told himself, I'm just going to walk for a few minutes, and if it sucks, I'll turn around.
And let me guess, he kept going.
Of course. Because once you start, momentum does all the heavy lifting. The brain naturally wants to finish what it starts.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second. Let's go back to the dish example. If I tell myself I'm just going to wash one single dish, isn't my brain smart enough to know I'm trying to trick it into doing the whole sink?
That's a fair question. But it's really not about tricking the brain. It's about bypassing the brain's initial threat response.
Like sneaking past the security guard.
Exactly. The cliff of an hour of chores triggers the alarm. But washing one dish, the energy required is practically zero. So the alarm doesn't go off.
And once my hands are in the warm water.
The natural momentum takes over. It actually takes more mental effort to stop and dry your hands than to just wash the second dish.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so we've got the car moving, but how do you keep it moving? Like, what happens next week when the novelty wears off?
That is where steps 2 and 3 come in, engineering the dopamine loop. You have to prove to your brain that the effort is actually paying off.
Right. So step 2 is making progress visible. The brain loves evidence that effort equals progress.
Yes. There's that famous Tony Robbins quote, right? Progress equals happiness.
It's so true, and there are so many simple ways to track it. The source mentions putting a big red X on a calendar. You know, the classic don't break the chain method.
Or even dropping a physical coin or a bead into a glass jar after a 2-hour focus session.
Oh, I like that. It's very tactile. You can see it piling up.
Or writing just one sentence a day in a journal about what you did well. The key here is an old weight loss principle. What is tracked improves, but what is tracked and recorded improves exponentially.
Wait, exponentially? Just by writing it down?
Yeah, because it's undeniable visual proof for your brain. But there is a crucial mindset shift here that people get wrong. Let's say you work out for 17 days straight, doing great,
Okay.
but then you miss day 18.
Oh, man, the chain breaks.
Right. And most people immediately start shaming themselves. I'm so lazy, I ruined it.
Which puts the parking brake back on.
Exactly. Instead, you have to celebrate the 17 days. You use that one bad day as just neutral data. You figure out what went wrong, and you move right back on the next day. Because progress seen is progress sustained.
And that leads into step 3, right? Rewarding yourself intentionally, which honestly sounds like training a dog.
It basically is. You're training your nervous system. You link effort with satisfaction to trigger dopamine.
And these don't have to be big rewards. The video talks about micro rewards, like just stepping outside for a deep breath of fresh air and some sun.
Or making your favorite non-alcoholic drink as a little ritual.
Yeah, or texting your spouse or your biggest fan and just saying, hey, I finished the thing, so they can tell you they're proud of you.
You can even just look in the mirror, smile, and say, I'm proud of you. It feels a little cheesy, but it works.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because instead of waiting for a medal at the very end of a marathon, you're essentially giving yourself a high five at every single mile marker. You're hacking your own biology.
What's fascinating here is the science of dopamine itself. We usually hear about dopamine and addiction in a really negative context, right? Like scrolling on our phones.
Yeah, endless doom scrolling.
Right. But we can actively cultivate a positive addiction to effort. If we intentionally pair hard work with satisfaction instead of dread, the brain says, hey, I liked that feeling. Let's do that hard work again.
So it literally becomes an addiction to the cycle. Work, reward, repeat.
Exactly. It completely automates the motivation.
Okay, so we've got the momentum and we've got this awesome dopamine loop running. But how do we sustain this over a whole lifetime so it actually becomes part of our identity and not just some, robotic system?
That's the final piece. Elevating the experience, steps 5 and 6. Step 5 is all about adding joy into the process.
Because we're allowed to actually enjoy the process. We
Exactly.
don't have to white-knuckle our way to success.
No, you don't. You can add sensory things. If you're doing tedious work, listen to music you absolutely love.
Or light a nice candle when you write, making the difficult things soothing.
Because discipline is really just a form of self-love.
I love that concept.
Think about it. You don't need any discipline to eat a whole pint of ice cream, right?
Definitely not. I can do that right now.
But that ice cream is ultimately bad for you. It makes you feel terrible later. You only need discipline to go into the kitchen and make a healthy meal that is actually good for you.
So it's a ritual of self-care. It's not a punishment. Pleasure is actually the fuel for discipline, not its enemy.
Exactly. And to anchor all of this, step 6 is attaching emotion to your why.
Right. It has to live in the heart, not just the head.
The creator shares this incredible quote from his mentor. He said, "If your why is strong enough, your how will reveal itself."
That is powerful.
It really is. You have to ask yourself the deep questions. Who do I become if I do this? How will this change my spouse's life or my children's lives?
Or what will I be able to do for my parents?
Exactly. You find that deeply emotional core, you write it down, and you read it every single morning to stay connected to it.
So what does this all mean for how we view ourselves?
Mm.
I mean, if we reframe discipline from a punishment for being lazy into an act of profound self-love, how does that shift the actual emotional weight of a task?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it means building these systems makes consistency feel totally natural.
You're not fighting yourself anymore.
No, you completely stop chasing motivation. You don't need it. You just
Uh-huh.
build a life where doing what is good for you actually feels good in the moment.
Wow. So bringing this whole deep dive to a close, it's really an ultimate transformation. You go from a person who avoids work to a person who genuinely craves it.
Yeah, you become excited to take action. The source actually closes with the end of that Sedona story.
Oh, right, after the month-long trip.
Yeah. He returns from this long trip, walks into his house, and realizes he is actually excited to sit down in his office and get back to work.
Because he associated so much pleasure with taking action.
Exactly. It feels like, as he put it, coming home to yourself because you know you are actively building the life you want.
That is just incredible. Okay, so I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to sort of mull over today. If you mapped out your daily routines right now, where are you currently exhausting yourself by trying to climb a sheer cliff? And what is the absolute smallest, most joyful breadcrumb you could drop for yourself today to turn that cliff into a trail?
Start dropping those Reese's Pieces.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you on the next one.